Keeping your nighttime blood glucose in the optimal range is one of the most important things for every diabetic or pre-diabetic. Because if your blood sugar drops too low, it might cause serious damage. You might even die. And I'm not kidding. But if your nighttime blood sugars are constantly high, your HbA1c will spike to the moon. Keep in mind that the HbA1c test draws a picture of your average blood sugars for the past 3 months. 1/3 of your A1c test results depends on your nighttime blood glucose. As you can see in this graph, if you are in the 200s every night, your HbA1c result will probably be around 9%. Studies show that even HbA1c above 7% leads to eye damage, nerve damage, foot problems, cardiovascular disease, and many more. I don't want to scare you, I just want you to really understand that keeping your blood sugar at night in the ideal range is equally important as getting good night's sleep. Actually, it's not even possible to get a good night's sleep if your blood sugars are too high, because you will probably need to go to the bathroom very often, and you will feel like crap in the morning. We all know that feeling when we wake up with high blood sugars. It's not nice. But it wouldn't be me if I didn't have some tips for you. Tips that I learned living over 30 years with type 1 diabetes that help me keep my blood sugar at night in the optimal range. I'm not a doctor, this is not medical advice. I'm just sharing my experience and trying to help you navigate your diabetes journey. Tip 1. Before you even start doing anything to improve your nighttime blood sugars, find out what exactly your blood glucose is doing at night. Maybe you already go to bed with high blood sugar and the blood sugars stay high all night. Maybe you go to bed with normal blood sugar and the blood sugar starts spiking during the night. Does it start creeping up in the early morning just before you wake up? Or maybe the problem is the exact opposite. Maybe you go too low during the night and your blood sugar only spikes as your body fights the nighttime hypoglycemia. The best way to find out your blood glucose trends during the night is to wear a continuous glucose monitor, like the Freestyle Libre, like the Dexcom. They capture the trends of your nighttime glucose and you can look at the graph to easily see where the problem is. If you don't have a continuous glucose monitor, then you will need to prick your finger multiple times during the night, ideally at least every 2 hours, and note down the numbers. What I would do is I would capture the numbers for at least a week or even 2 weeks in a journal. And in that journal, I would also note what I ate for dinner on each day and if I had any physical activity during the day. Once I've collected all the information, I would try to find out any patterns or any repetitive trends. You need to identify what the problem is and give it a name. My blood glucose rises by approximately 60 milligrams per deciliter almost every night between midnight and 2 a.m. after I eat pizza for dinner. Or my nighttime blood glucose is constantly too high, around 200 milligrams per deciliter on days when I don't do any physical activity. Only after I identified the problem and gave it a name, I would move on and come up with the plan on how to fix it. Tip 2 for improving those nighttime blood sugars. Pay attention to what you eat for dinner and to when you eat dinner. What works for me is eating dinner between 6 and 7 p.m., which is approximately 3 to 4 hours before I go to bed. And I try to keep the dinner light without too much calories from fat. My preferred options are chicken and zucchini meatballs, chicken breast with a big portion of salad, and different variations of vegetable soups. I realized that these meals don't spike my blood sugar very much, and most importantly, they keep my blood sugar stable during the time when I go to bed. Our goal today is to keep our blood sugar stable in the ideal range over the whole night, and the best way to get there, surprise surprise, is to start well, to already go to bed with stable blood sugars in that ideal range. And you can achieve that by eating a light dinner. By the way, the ideal blood glucose range for a healthy person during the night is somewhere between 80 and 120 milligrams per deciliter. This is where you ideally want to be. For diabetics, the generally acceptable range is a bit wider, between 70 and 180 milligrams per deciliter. But you should always try to be even better and check with your doctor really what is the recommended range for you and what you should be shooting for. Now, I mentioned a few meals that I like to eat, but I know that different diabetics have different preferences when it comes to what they put on their plate. And that's okay. Just keep in mind you absolutely need to understand how what you put on your plate or what drink you have impact your blood sugar. The reason why I recommend eating dinner 3 to 4 hours before going to bed is that most meal, as well as the insulin your body produces or you inject to cover those meals will have the most effect on the blood sugar levels during those 3 to 4 hours after you eat them. And if you see your blood sugar spiking right after you go to bed, or in the first half of the night even, your dinner might very well be the problem. Remember, you want to start the night with stable blood sugars in the optimal range. Tip number 3, focus on improving insulin sensitivity. Naturally. This point is especially important when you see your blood sugar spiking gradually throughout the night. And we're not talking about medication yet here. We will cover that in a minute because there are diabetics who are insulin dependent and who need medication. But now we're thinking natural ways how to improve insulin sensitivity. And there are 2 ways everyone can do it, no matter what type of diabetes you have. I'm sure you know these 2 things, but let me repeat them to you because I think they are so important to not only your diabetes, but also to your overall health. 1. Avoid saturated fats and processed foods. I stayed completely away from processed foods and I ate literally no saturated fats in the last 2 weeks before filming this video. And the results I'm seeing already now are pretty amazing. I'm a type 1 diabetic. My body doesn't produce insulin at all. But over the past 2 weeks, sticking to healthy diet, I was able to reduce the amount of insulin I need to take by 15%. So I improved my insulin sensitivity by 15%. I didn't make any other changes to my lifestyle or the number of calories I eat. So the improvement in the insulin sensitivity can be directly attributed to eating healthier. Number 2, get your body moving. If you bring that heart rate up 3 to 4 times a week, you will become more insulin sensitive. It doesn't matter what kind of exercise you do. In general, there are 2 kinds of physical activity. Aerobic activity like hiking, jogging, or swimming, which will bring your blood sugars down instantly. And then there are anaerobic activities where you bring your heart rate up even higher for short periods of time, like fast sprints or high intensity interval training. And these might bring your immediate blood sugars a little bit higher, but they will reduce your blood glucose a few hours or several hours after such training. But it doesn't matter what kind of activity you do. Just pick one that you like and stay consistent. That's how you improve insulin sensitivity, which will help you tremendously in reducing those elevated nighttime blood sugars. Tip number 4, fine-tune that long-lasting insulin, aka basal insulin. This is another key to optimal nighttime blood sugars in the ideal range for those insulin-dependent diabetics. And I'm not talking about fast-acting insulin here, because if you follow tip 2 and eat your dinner 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed, take a rapid-acting insulin with your dinner, it should not have much impact on your nighttime blood sugars. By the time you go to bed, your fast-acting insulin will play minimal role. If after implementing all the previous tips, you still see your blood sugar rising during the night, the issue might very well be your basal insulin, especially if the spike always occurs at a similar time. And if that's the case, you might need to talk to your doctor and adjust the amount of long-lasting insulin that you take, or adjust the time when you inject that long-lasting insulin. This is a bit easier to fix when you are on an insulin pump, because you can simply tell the pump to give you more insulin during that specific time. Guys, if you are insulin dependent, please implement these tips step by step. Don't overdo it. Don't do too much at the same time. Monitor your progress with the continuous glucose monitors or frequent finger pricking, and consult your doctor. You might see tremendous effects, especially after you avoid saturated fats and processed foods and start being more active. And once that happens, you might need to reduce the amount of medication you are taking. Otherwise, you might soon have a problem with the exact opposite, nighttime hypoglycemia, because your blood sugar will just be too low. Guys, high blood sugars at night are not the only problem we struggle with as diabetics. Another one that bothers almost all of us are high early morning blood sugars. And in the video on the screen right now, I will tell you how I got rid of those. If you like what I do and if you want to support me, please consider joining as a channel member or joining my Patreon community. If you do so, you will be able to exchange direct messages with me. Just follow the links down below. Thanks for watching. Ciao.